So, Horizon Realms was released on April the 25th, and I completely ignored it. For those who don't know, Realms is a mode that allows players to revisit some of the time-based content for the game which hasn't been available for some time, and to explore the areas that were changed for certain playlists, so the Summer Splash, Horizon Coffee Place, and the Retrowave Highway. This of course has new accolades and new cars to unlock, but there are only two modes, one of which is skill mode, where you have to collect as many skill points as possible within a 5-minute timer. The background footage for 90% of this video is in fact skill mode, and then also free mode where you can just explore without restrictions. I honestly had zero interest in the tracks and hadn't touched them until I started recording this video, as I thought fresh opinions might be the best way of looking at this video and giving my thoughts. Why am I doing this at all then? Because the video I wanted to do has taken longer than expected to make. It's another review video, but it's taken longer because I suck at the game. But also because I wanted the Lamborghini Huracan Storato, which you can get for free from completing all the skill modes of every single realm. Other than that, I had zero interest in doing this honestly, and the process of getting them was somewhat boring. I'll likely never touch this mode ever again after this video is finished. But in terms of structure, in terms of how I'm going to go through it, I'm doing a tier list, as those definitely haven't been completely done to death by this point, I know. So it's tiered from S to F. Once I've finished, I'll give the top 3, and you will never see me do anything to do with this again. Also be visiting the non-stadium realms first, as the stadium ones take up the majority, and so it's easy to do the non-stadium ones first, otherwise this is going to be a little bit disjointed. But other than that, I think we should just jump right into it. So, starting with Retrowave Highway, this was the second one that I actually completed, which I'll explain later, and it was much more interesting than that one. I jumped in the A86 for the 90s aesthetic purposes, because obviously I've got to throw that in, and drifted around the arena as much as physically possible really. I mean, it was somewhat varied zone, considering it's literally just a stretch of the highway that's been blocked off from the rest of the world, which, you know, isn't amazing, but it's better than nothing. And, I mean, it was enjoyable compared to some of the others. There were some that were honestly awful, but especially the one that was before this one, that one I just despised. And I just love the neon aesthetic really that it has, so I suppose I'm just going to stick it in A. I don't think it deserves S though really, to be honest, and you'll see why in a little bit. And so next up was Cars and Coffee, which this one was interesting. Might be because it was literally the last festival series as of recording this, but I found this one was to be somewhat lacking compared to the others. It had lots of open space to farm skill points, but other than that it was small, relatively contained space which barely had any breakables or anything interesting to note really. I mean, there was the centre bit which was the whole point of it, but other than that it was just fine. There wasn't really much to be said other than that, as it was just a revisit of the area I explored literally the week before. There isn't really much else to say, like I've said. I mean, there were a couple billboards that I didn't notice until this revisit, but other than that, yeah, it's just, it exists, and I mean, it rightfully deserves its place down in D tier where I'm going to put it, so I think D tier will have to do, and then it will move on to the next one. So, third is simply the Neon Airstrip. Once again, I love the neon aesthetic it had going for it, but I like this one much more than the Highway one, really. I mean, this one had a much more interesting map. Instead of just being this small, tiny stretch of highway, it was most of the airstrip, including the off-road areas around it. And, well, it just gives a bit more contrast, doesn't it? Rather than just being one contained strip of road where you just have to quickly run around the same area to smash as much stuff as possible and to drift around. And that was definitely the same, but I think it just looked aesthetically more pleasing. But because for all of that, I'm just going to go at S tier because I just loved it a lot, and I don't know what else to tell you. This is my opinion, I don't care. So, next is Dia de Muertos, which shares a number of things with a later map, but notable points for this one really is that it's the only event to take place in a kind of settlement or town, where this one takes place in Mulegé. This gives it honestly more identity than all of the others, considering it's one of the only ones that takes place in an actual location rather than just the middle of the highway, the middle of the airstrip, or like the overwhelming majority of them in the middle of the stadium. It at least has a little bit more than throwing a couple skulls in and calling it a day. There's fireworks, there's little objects scattered across the zone, and because it is part of the town, there's a lot of breakable objects to harvest for skill chains, which makes a lot of difference, because when some of these said, oh yeah, we're going to do skill chains, they just didn't account for the fact that they would need skill chains, because for some of them, like one of the ones later down, actually it's the next one, they just didn't account for that, and so it's awful to create a skill chain on. But I think for this one, however, it's going to take its place over in B tier, because it is just bang on average. Bang. So, well, this one's going to be quick. It's the stadium track. It's literally the Horizon Stadium circuit. It's very, very, very boring considering how the game punishes the player for long drifts in terms of skill score. Once you hit ultimate, you basically need to then turn and change it, otherwise you're going to just bank, and it's just unappealing. There's no visual variety, there's nothing interesting about it. It's just, you go around the circuit, you try and gain a skill score from drifting and drift taps. That's it. It's absolutely bottom of the barrel. It's completely unfun. This was actually my first one, and it was just a really depressing start because it was the most boring one possible. And because of all of that, it's just going to get dumped down in F tier. I never want to even think about playing this again. So this one is the oval circuit, which is about as boring as the last one, but instead of being a racetrack, it's an oval, which is so much more interesting, and it has a little bit more drifting space in between, which is nice, but it ended up with me just drifting round and round and round the centre over and over and over again, with no visual variety once again. It's still bottom of the barrel, but it is only marginally better. So it's still getting an F tier, but it's marginally better, which isn't really saying anything, is it? So the next one is the Summer Party, which is finally an interesting stadium map. It's a summer themed event with, beachfront palm trees. So far it's been the most fun stadium track, and it's given lots of kind of breakable objects and jumps. But my main critique is just the fact that there's multiple places where the map either bugged out or just where I jumped up onto invisible walls, which wasn't exactly the thing that I was expecting, and it wasn't exactly amazing. So as a result of all this, it is just going to go once again into B tier. It's just going to go B for bang on average, and I think that'll be that. So the next realm is the Lunar Drift Arena, which for me personally was incredibly fun to record. It was obviously designed for drifting, which is mainly what I was doing, but at this point in my recording it was the best one so far. I mean, it was the most fun for me to move around and get skill points on, and it shares fireworks like I talked about earlier, so that was great. The drivable area generally was quite wide, it was quite well laid out generally, it was interesting to explore, and I mean it was great to just gather skill score. If you wanted a map to just farm on, this one would probably be it, to be honest. But I mean, other than that, like normal, there isn't much to say. So when it comes to this one, I think we will put it in A tier. The reason it isn't in S, I think, is partially because it just doesn't quite stack up to the ones that are in S to me personally, but we're gonna have to see. So the next one down is the Stadium Maze, and this one was just fine, really. It wasn't amazing for skill score because of how tight the areas were, as this is how I'm actually judging the maps, as it's how I experience them. So drifting was hard. There were no breakable objects whatsoever within the map until you reached the centre, which had a very small area to gather score properly, but other than that, it wasn't really much there. I mean, I can imagine this is really fun for custom modes like Hide and Seek or Infection and games like that, but for the purposes of this video, honestly, it's not a very fun thing to play on. So, I mean, I think that's it for this, so we're gonna stick it at C tier, I think, just because it's fine, and we'll use C tier as just an average tier, really. So, the next realm, well, this is the third to last one, I think, is the Winter Wonderland, which for me, this one was interesting, but it wasn't very fun to kind of drive around, so it's a change of scenery at the very least, which is quite nice, considering that 99% of these are set in the Stump Park, so they aren't exactly designed to be the peak of fun, interesting exploration, but it was better than I expected, really. I mean, it is very seasonal because it's centered obviously around the holidays. There's igloos, there's Christmas trees, there's candy canes, and I can see it being very good for that. However, as I'm recording this, it is the middle of August, or when I should have been recording this, it was the middle of August, and so it's not really the holiday spirit, is it? But furthermore, it did have some problems on the map, which are inconsistent collision with objects, so I would randomly hit objects and they would break chains when before I'd hit them, or even others which allow me to maintain my chains without any issues. So I would hit a Christmas tree of a certain size, drive another 5 minutes down, hit the same tree again, and it will break the chain for no reason. I know I have the perk that lets it not break chains once, but still, it's stupid. So, I mean, it was certainly a choice to do that. I don't know if it was an intentional one, but it was definitely a choice. So I think I'm going to have to put this one down at D tier, just because interesting concept, not very fun. I wish they did it like at the volcano or something. Oh, that could be interesting. Put like Santa's sleigh at the top of the volcano and have it like a winter wonderland kind of thing at the top of the volcano with the volcano frozen over. That would have been interesting actually. But anyway, D tier. Let's move on to the next one. And next is the Stunt Park as the second to last realm on this list. I mean, this was great for farming skill score, shockingly. I know the Stunt Park was great for farming, but it had plenty of room and obstacles to jump over, smash into, and kind of drift around to get some points. I mean, it's great for point farming, I imagine, similar to the Lunar Arena one. The name escapes me right now. The ramps were sometimes a little bit too sharp on drift areas occasionally, I noticed, which wasn't amazing, but besides that, it was just a perfectly average area to grind, really. I mean, it was fun, but it wasn't particularly interesting. Oh, and trying to hit 180 degree jumps and do 360s when I'm spinning off ramps, which was really fun. But other than that, I think I'm going to pop that into, let's see, B tier, I think. I think B tier is right. I think it's a solid, just above average one, and it'll do. But anyway, this will be moving on to the last one. And the final realm of this video is the ice rink, which entirely comes down to personal preference. It depends whether or not you find sliding without any grip to be fun or not, which I do, luckily. So I spent all my time enjoying smacking candy canes and Christmas trees as I slid across a lake and tried to at least attempt to direct myself in some kind of legible direction. It's a relatively barren map, there's not much there in terms of skill points, it's awful, I wouldn't recommend it for that at all. But at the same time, it was fun to me to play like ice hockey sliding a car around by myself, which is really depressing now that I think about it. But I can see why some people wouldn't like this very much, and on that point of balance, I think I'm going to stick it in C tier, which will conclude the list. I am then going to do an actual outro instead of leaving it there, I think. And so this part of the video is completely unscripted. I'm writing this at the very end of recording everything. I mean, half of this was recorded a week ago, the other half was recorded, I want to say today. Well, no, I know when it is, it's just today. So it has been split up quite a bit. This should have come out 2 weeks ago, but due to personal circumstances I've not been able to actually finish recording everything. I think I'm going to have to end up going back to the once a month schedule though, as I think it will work better because I've got some stuff coming up, and so I don't think I'll be able to record as much, therefore it's going to have to go back to once a month, which it did kind of help a lot with growth. I'll be completely blunt with that when I was doing 2 weeks, but I don't think I can maintain it with the style of content that I make. Especially as, in case you haven't noticed, I've killed Tunes of the Month completely. I've got no real interest in continuing it. It was mostly just to, make sure that I'm actually still contributing something in once a month. And now that I've got a bunch of ideas just in the works, I should be okay with that, but I'm gonna have to, I think, split a couple of videos in half, which I don't like doing, but I might have to. There is one that I've got all the footage for, which I could actually do, so that'll probably end up being next month's video. But I'm genuinely gonna have to see. But yeah, I mean, the tier list is done. I'll throw it up on the screen now actually, so you can see the final one, seeing as that's kind of the whole point of this video, and that's probably why you clicked on it. and as a result I'm going to throw that up there, which you're probably looking at right now as I'm talking, and I'm just going to say I'm not sure what's going to happen with the future of this. I've barely been on the site in the last 3-ish weeks due to everything going off, but the minute I'm kind of just avoiding using YouTube altogether, which is just a personal thing. I've been catching up on a lot of TV at the minute. I might make a couple of videos relating to some TV that I've been watching, although I probably won't, just down to copyright and things like that. Won't actually be, no, I'll come back to that another time. But anyway, I think I'm going to stop dragging this outro out now, and I'm going to leave this here, so I will see you all in the next one. If you can do all the YouTube stuff, I'm not going to repeat what everyone else says, that would be great, and goodbye.